We were around 101. That was the highest we got to in Atlanta. So our actual air temperature recorded at Hartsfield-Jackson, 95 degrees. So it's a 6-degree difference here. So oftentimes during this time of the year, we tell you to do some math. And if you look at that car thermometer or any thermometers you see out and about around town, and you want to get the heat index so you can really determine how it really feels outside, at about 5 to 6 degrees. Tomorrow, we may even bump that number up to about 7 degrees. Right now, we're at 85. The heat index is not really a matter or concern, especially after you fall below 70-something degrees. And temperatures area-wide are not going to do that tonight. We're in the 70s. You can see right now in LJ, we're at 76 degrees, but I expect everybody everywhere will stay above 70 degrees by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. In fact, here in Atlanta, it is 80 degrees. In terms of the growth of the temperatures will be rapid. However, it could be blighted if a couple storm cells break out. You can see here by noon, 91 degrees feels more like 98 in Atlanta, but there is some action starting to pop out between I-20 and I-85 to the south and to the west to the metro area. We'll see if that unfolds. Nonetheless, the mountains also rife for maybe a few passing isolated showers or a couple claps of thunder. Feeling like 102 by the 4 o'clock hour here. Look out east. That stifling heat there, 100 even after or as the sun goes down there in Athens, 96 in Eatonton, and Wednesday serving up more of the same. We'll continue to track these numbers and what the weekend will look and feel like coming up on News Edge at 11.
All right, we'll see you then. Jonathan, thanks. Wildfires across the West have been intensifying. We had the latest on the fires that have already claimed 3 lives.
Graham says one of the FBI's biggest concerns is a drone falling onto a crowd below. Along with the drone being seized, penalties for flying in restricted airspace could include prison time and a fine of up to $100,000.
We'll obviously work with our U.S. Attorney's Office to be fair and establish what is going to come forward, whether that means we continue to keep the drones, whether we impose a smaller fine.
The FBI says agents have posted signage around downtown where the TFR is.
A supplemental movement, maybe
some degree to this big ridge of high pressure that we have. You could kind of call these storms ridge riders a little bit, Sam. You think that would be crazy? No, I think you could. So the idea, we'll talk about this in more detail coming up, but we got the big heat dome that's going to be sitting over the eastern U.S. Actually, right now it's a little bit farther toward the west. But it's this idea that underneath the high, you don't get any action because there's sinking air. So no rain and that kind of stuff. But along the edge of the ridge, you'll get these little pieces of energy that will ride the ridge, and you get these clusters of storms that just kind of go over the ridge. Sometimes it'll even happen down on the south side of the ridge, too, a little bit. We call it the ring of fire. It's a pretty cool thing to see when it actually happens. And this is the season for that. You get into summer, and that's definitely ridge riding season for sure. See how we're doing for power outages here after the derecho that we had earlier. If you haven't seen this, let me just give you a little preview of it. One of the most unique storms I think I've ever seen in my career. Look at the loop of this storm. It looks so tiny. This was earlier on. Remember, this started, let me start the loop. This was last night at 10 p.m. Like our show was ending. And this little cluster of storms pops up. Okay, we got a couple supercells. Not the craziest thing we've ever seen. That happens sometimes in the northern plains. Watch this storm right here. Watch the evolution of it. Wow, that thing's lasting a long time. Well, it's pretty small. Doesn't matter the size of it. It was producing very consistent high-end wind damage. There were some windmills and a windmill farm that were completely destroyed. That's like something you would see in a tornado. And then look at how this progresses as you get farther toward the east. It becomes a bona fide bow echo. And we did actually confirm that it was a derecho. So, when you look at all the storm reports, look at that. And if there was more land up here and over Lake Superior, I guarantee we would have seen those storm reports going even farther to the northeast. All right, I could talk about that all day because I think that was one of the cooler radar presentations I've ever seen. What I do want to talk about is the extreme heat that we have coming up. I'm going to continuously hit this. I know I sound like a broken record, but this is a serious one. It's important. If you live anywhere in the eastern half of the U.S., we have very dangerous heat coming later on this week. You probably already felt a place like New York. I was outside with my family a little bit earlier before I came to work. Even at like 11 o'clock in the morning, it was noticeably more humid out. My weather station, we had a dew point of 71 in central Jersey. Dew point's going to continue to go up, and the temperature will go up as well. That's going to make the heat index, what it actually feels like outside, getting up into that dangerous territory. Why is it dangerous? Because your sweat doesn't work. Sweat needs to evaporate in order to cool you off. Evaporational cooling, that's the process. So when you have a lot of moisture around in the air, the sweat doesn't do its thing, and that's why it gets dangerous, because it can sneak up on you. It really can. That's New York City. You got Philadelphia, where it's actually going to be even hotter. I think the Mid-Atlantic has this a little bit worse than areas farther toward the north, where places like New England might even get some relief from time to time from some of these storms rolling in. I mean, it's still going to be very hot. Look at some of the record highs that could go down. You're going to see a lot of big cities on this chart. You got Hartford. This is on Thursday, by the way. Thursday is really where the meat of this heat wave sets in. Thursday and Friday, likely the worst days. And you can see a lot of triple digits on here. Now, you might be wondering, what's the process that's leading to this? Well, I would imagine you've seen before, like the idea of just having a ridge over an area and that makes it warm. Well, it's not all in 2D. You can actually look at this in 3 dimensions. When we call it a heat dome, it's that way for a reason. So this is like the normal look that you're used to seeing, the 2D. But if you actually look at what the height surface looks like when we're looking at the upper level pattern, it looks more like this. So you can see it's like little dimples and pimples. And where you see the dimples, you generally have cooler air under that. So, say like Montana, Western Canada. And then this guy right here, this sucker is the big heat dome, which is migrating toward the east. So here you go. These are the days up at the top left of your screen. Now that you got the idea, I'll change the camera view so you can see where the ridge actually is. But there's your heat dome. And here's the problem with it. Once it gets over the east and the northeast, it's not going to move. It's not going to move for a couple of days. It's a very slow mover. We don't break down this pattern until at least late this weekend, and more like... Bottom line is there was a derecho today, and I'm going to be comparing it to some of the ones you can tell by the video there. That's got to be the 2012 one. Actually, today was the anniversary of that, and we had another derecho, if you can believe it. It looked a little bit different. It was not quite as wide, but it was packing a punch. It had much stronger wind gusts. If you can believe it, we had some wind gusts over 130 miles per hour. This is one of the more unique storms I think I've ever seen in my career. And to talk about it a little bit, I want to bring in somebody who I've followed on social media for a while and always wanted to talk to, Sam Brandt. He's a fantastic meteorologist. You should totally give him a follow. Now, I'm a little worried because he uses a lot of big words in his tweets, and the Mets love it, but we're going to make things understandable tonight. Sam, thanks a lot for the time, dude. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, so this, first off, the time of day that it happened. When I found out about this storm, I was checking Slack around noon or so today, and they were talking about this storm. I go back and look at the radar loop, and I'm like, gee, this thing's been going since before I went to bed last night. It was an outrageous track that this took. So basically, for people that don't know, a derecho, it's a long track storm that produces a lot of wind damage. There's certain criteria, which we'll get into. But you ever seen a storm like this before that starts as like a small supercell and then, turns into this type of situation? And I don't believe there's any containment on it yet. The wind gusts tomorrow.